what supporters won't be aware of, that the rent that they were paying at the time when they went on rent strike was phenomenal. It was unsustainable for a League One club. It was absolutely unsustainable.
If you were still here, how would you be feeling about the squad that we've got? Where are the gaps and what do we need to do?
I personally believe that we need to improve central defender positions. I think we need an experienced, quality central defender, at least one, maybe two. But that aside, I think it looks quite an exciting side. But I think that central defenders are a really key ingredient to us having success or not this season.
So player transfers, how much involvement did you have with that?
The way that the system worked was that obviously we had a head of recruitment, Chris Badland, for the most part of the journey, and Mark Robbins, and it was a sort of triangle between the three of us really. Mark obviously identified which areas of the team that he needed to strengthen.
Yeah.
Chris would spend sort of 12 months prior to that, and that's how far in advance they worked.
Yeah.
Looking for players to fit the bill, fit our profile, if you like. He would bring those players or selection of players in that position to the table. Mark would then choose the targets that he preferred from those, and then obviously when he identified who we wanted, Chris would then talk to the players. Most of the players that we've signed on the journey from League Two to the Championship had been sort of out of contract free agents, but we spent a little bit of money along the way. So Chris would try and do the deals with the agents, particularly if they were free agents at the end of their contracts. But obviously, myself and Chris would be speaking about each individual deal on a daily basis, during that period of time. So obviously, the manager and head of recruitment had the budget. They knew the parameters they could work within.
Okay.
And I would sort of, not referee, that's not the right word, but almost facilitate, I suppose. I used to like to use that word. I used to call myself facilitator. Yeah. So Chris would generally do the deals with the agents, but I always used to end up being bad cop if there was an issue. So we would set the parameters where we could go in terms of players' personal terms, and then obviously if that hit a buffer, then I'd come in and basically say we haven't got any more money. That was it. Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
Did you have many leave it?
We didn't have many leave it.
No.
We didn't lose many targets along the way. But when it came to actual paying of transfer fees, I was usually the negotiator of that.
Okay.
Again, Chris would have an idea what the selling club would want,
Yeah.
and that gave me almost the parameters I had to sort of deal with. So,
would it happen where you'd got a certain budget and you'd reached that budget and they wanted more, but Mark really wanted the player in? Would you go over your budget sometimes to try and secure?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Victor was probably the prime example of that. I think we were almost going to do a deal cheaper than we eventually paid for him, but another club came in at the 11th hour and offered marginally more than us, so we had to improve our offer or lose him. And I think we both felt the potential of Victor at the time. He was only potential at that time because obviously we'd had him on loan the previous season, but he'd scored a few goals towards the end of the season and shown signs of what he was going to go on to do. So we went a little bit over the top on what we'd originally wanted to pay, but that's about negotiation then. And I think in those times, because they're completely different financial situations to the model that Doug operates, my key was spreading the payments over a longer period of time.
Okay.
So we did pay more than we originally planned to for Vic. It was still a bargain, but
especially for what we sold him for,
absolutely. But it was that or lose him to another Championship club.
Who really wanted him? All of you? Or
Mark wanted him. Ultimately, I knew that Mark was right to want him, so I made sure that it happened. And again, Sisu just let that happen. So they didn't interfere. They didn't say no, you can't do that. They let it happen. So
you guys had autonomy over that side of the business.
A great extent. I mean, they were involved in the background, but they didn't say no. So
by more keeping them informed rather than having to ask for permission.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's generally the way it worked. But we didn't spend a lot on transfer fees. I don't know exactly. I've got a spreadsheet somewhere, but we probably, in my entire time, we probably only spent about 6 million on outgoing players.
Wow.
So when you look at the players that we brought in in that period of time, obviously we talked about Vic, Ben Sheaf will probably ultimately be the next one to be sold. Hope not, because he's an integral part of the team, but that's probably likely down the line.
The rumour mill is in full swing about that, isn't it?
I hope not, but it'll be big money when he goes.
It's nice to see him back on the grass.
Obviously we had Callum O'Hara on a free transfer, which is an amazing piece of business, but unfortunately he's gone again on a free transfer. Obviously we brought Gus in, so we brought some players in that have gone on to reap the rewards financially.
Some good business decisions, strong business decisions.
Yeah, well, and listen, look, it's not all roses. We made some poor signings along the way, but I think the amount of players that we were churning, the circumstances that we were operating under, because what you have to remember is that we've done everything we've done in terms of the promotions we've had with budgets that have been sort of mid-table budgets, which is really unheard of in football. The teams with the bigger budgets generally win promotions and titles. So for us to get out of League Two on what was probably just it was probably a playoff budget. That's all it was at best in League Two. Certainly when we won League One, the budget was a mid-table budget.
Yeah.
So that's an incredible achievement for everybody that was involved in it.
And going from, if we look at a couple of seasons ago where the majority of the team, I say the majority, there was a lot of loan players in the squad a couple of years ago, to now the majority is owned.
Yeah.
Is that change in mindset of the team, has that come from Doug since he's come in?
Probably, yeah. I'm not sure. I think there's pros and cons with loan players and having your own, obviously. But we had some really good loan players as well.
Some great loan players.
You look at Ian Matson. He played in the Champions League final last season. What a loan signing that was. They helped the process, and they have played a part in the process along the way.
Is it good for a football club to have a mix of the two at any one time? So, owning your own players topped up with loan players, is that a good way to run a team?
Yeah, I think ultimately the way that Doug wants to do it, having your own players, if you can achieve that, is probably the best way. But having some of the best young talent from top Premier League clubs coming in, helps the situation and did help us.
On the pitch, the loan players don't ever seem any less committed to the team than players that are employed by the club. So is that the case behind the scenes as well? They're 100% for the club?
Absolutely. I don't think it would work if they weren't. I mean, I think they tend to come for a season-long loan, most of them. And I think in their minds that they're Coventry City players for that season. I know ultimately their parent club will be paying them, and that they will return at the end of the loan generally. But now they see themselves as Coventry City players, and if they didn't buy into it and didn't have that approach, then it wouldn't work. And for those that don't have that approach, it doesn't work.
They don't last.
It fails. Yeah.
And I would guess as well when they're on loan, they want to prove themselves as well. They want to. They want to prove their worth. It's
generally a really important part of their development for wherever their future takes them. We've just spoken about Ian Matson. Some players won't be that fortunate. We had a player called Dujon Sterling on loan from Chelsea in the first season in League One. And he did okay for us. He didn't pull any trees up. It was his first loan. I think he was 18 at the time. But he's gone on to have a reasonable career in the game away from Chelsea. I think he's had time at Championship clubs, and he's now at Rangers. So it's part of their development, and unless they see that as individuals, it probably doesn't work for them, and it doesn't work for the club that's loaning either.
If you could pick one player that was your best bit of business? Have you got one?
Difficult question. There's been lots of good bits of business. I think probably signing of Matty Godden from Peterborough was important to us in terms of, the goals that he scored on the way to the promotion in League One, and then he scored some very important goals in the Championship for us as well. So I think Matty Godden strikes out as, he wasn't expensive for a goal scorer with a proven record.
He was a great servant to the club as well, wasn't he?
He absolutely was a good lad, and that's something that's always important to me. Having good people around you, both on and off the field. I think part of that success is we've had good people around us, and you have to, as to go back to the teamwork and the team spirit, you have to have. If you've got bad apples or people that are not there possibly for the right reasons, then it can put a spanner in the works.
Absolutely.
And, so we've always had good characters around the dressing room, and Matty was certainly one of those. And I believe he's been sold, obviously, to Charlton. When we recouped a lot of what we paid for him, so that makes it even more business. I think Matty scored 50 goals for us, and an important player in the team
at the time when it was needed.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we've done other good bits of business as well. At the time, lots of things spring to mind, but that's probably one of the better ones.
So we spoke about transfers and what involvement you had when transferring players, and obviously with a lot of them an agent is involved. So talk to me about that.
Well, I think every player in the EFL has an agent. So there's not a piece of player movement that doesn't happen without an agent being involved. Sometimes two.
Sometimes two?
Yeah, sometimes there can be complications where there can be two.
Wow.
So, look, agents are unfortunately to me, they're a necessary evil. They're within the game. They're not going anywhere. So they're here to stay. But they're ultimately most agents are there for their purposes, not for, in my opinion,
they're making the money, aren't they?
Yeah, they want to move players around. That's how they make the money. So there are some good agents, there's some bad agents, some decent human beings, and some not so decent human beings along the way. But they can be challenging. Obviously, they want to do what's best for their client, but they don't always set out to do what's best for their client, and that's the bit that frustrates me sometimes. And we've had instances that player left the club that we'd offered a deal to, which was a good deal, and it wasn't right for the agent, so the agent didn't. The player didn't re-sign, and the player since had gone on to have a career that's not been great. It's been in decline since he left Coventry City Football Club. So that wasn't the agent doing what was best for the player, because the player wanted to re-sign for us, and we wanted to re-sign him. Look, they make the world go round. We when we worked with Chris worked with quite a close group of agents and had a good relationship with them, and I think that worked for us at the time. Okay. I think now we've broadened our horizons, I think, in terms of where we're recruiting from. So I believe that there's lots of different agents. Yeah, at some points we had agents that have got 3 or 4 of our players, so we maybe had 5 or 6 different agents that got the squad, but that's not the case at the moment. And you get to understand the way that agents operate then when it's that way, but so that has its good points and bad points, but I'm not a fan of agents, but they are.
They're there to stay, aren't they?
Absolutely, and you have to make the best of it.
Find a way to work.
Would
there be certain names of agents that came across your desk that you would think, oh,
Yeah.
this is going to be difficult.
Yeah, definitely. And you'd think, oh God, he's not with him, is he? So
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. They would prove to be difficult as well. Your worst fears will come true when you start to talk to them, because you know what you're dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah, not nice. Would you find, do footballers change agents, or do they tend to stick with the same agent?
Occasionally they change. Yeah, particularly when they're younger. I think when they're sort of coming past the academy, sort of first year pro, maybe second year pro, they tend to they've been all the way with that on that journey with that person, and they tend to somebody from a bigger, probably possibly agency will come and sort of bend their ear and twist their thoughts, if you like, and move them. But it's not a common thing, but occasionally it happens.
Yeah. And at what sort of level? What sort of age of footballer, level of footballer, do they start to work with an agent?
Well, they're not supposed to have any involvement at pre-academy level. Pre-scholar level.
Okay.
But they are around and about.
Waiting to pounce.
Yeah, they wait to pounce. Yeah, and to be fair to a lot of them, make their livings by taking these younger players, and the good ones guide them and do a good job.
Yeah.
They pick them up when they've finished their scholarship or in the process of the scholarship, and they start them on their career path journey and do well for them. Some agents make a career out of that and do well. They're probably not the richer agents, because obviously the agents earn their money from their percentage of the players' wages.
Yeah.
If you had one player in the Premier League on your books, you'd be making a decent living without having anybody else. But the players at sort of League 1, League 2 level, you probably need sort of 10 to 12 players to earn what you earn from one Premier League player. And those agents that care for the young players are doing a good job. But there's all sorts of agents out there, good, bad, and indifferent.
Everything in the middle.
Yeah.
And in terms of League 2, would all League 2 players have an agent as well? So it's from every league up.
Yeah, and players in the National League now have agents as well. Yeah.
Wow.
So and I always used to think at that level, at League 2 and probably below that, it's all well and good having an agent, but a club knows what it's got to spend on a player.
Yeah.
So you're not really going to add any value.
No.
If that player's coming to my club and I'm in National League or League 1, I know what I can spend on his wages, and an agent's not going to improve that.
It's not going to change it.
No, he can take him.
Because you can't go above it.
He might take him somewhere else where he can earn more money, but what I've got to spend on that player at that level is that money. So he's going to get that. He's going to get that with or without an agent.
Yeah.
But that's what they do. They'll try and find a deal somewhere else that's better.
How much say does the player have over the agent? The agent wants the money. Does the player automatically follow that, or will they go with their heart sometimes?
Ultimately, it should be the player's decision, shouldn't it? But again, you don't know how the conversations go with agents and how strongly they lean on them, and how much of the story they tell them as well, because the agent's in possession of all the facts, but they might, the unscrupulous ones might withhold some information to take the player in a direction that the agent wants to take him. It's not necessarily the best route for the player.
So a lot of conversations then happen with just agents, not with players present. So the conversations with the agent on their behalf.
Yeah, between club. The club would rarely talk to a player directly about terms and conditions.
Which, like you say, is really interesting then, because I'm sure there's some ethics that they're bound to pass every piece of information on, but whether they do or not does that happen?
Yeah, absolutely. And with some, it clearly doesn't. But as I said, there's a mixed bag. There's some really good guys out there, some really good agents out there, some good quality people. There's also some bad quality people.
Not so great. How was the relationship with Sisu?
For me, it was always very positive. I have and had an excellent relationship with Joyce Sapala and Laura Deering, who's sort of Joy's right-hand lady. and obviously Tim Fisher, who was initially part of the Sisu setup. So obviously, there's been an awful lot written and said about them, and supporters will make their own minds up about them. But all I would say is, I think that Joy always wanted what was right and best for the club. Now, when I say that, people might think that, obviously the court cases, the battle that she had with the council, and I suppose that ultimately Wasps were drawn into that, wasn't right for the club. I think, my belief that she had a very good case, and
that was defending the club as well.
Yeah,
it was
defending the club and the club's position. Yeah, absolutely. And she had a good case, but she was doing what she thought was right for the club. She took some very hard decisions at the time. So, yeah, look, I think that for me, what I would say is that, they always paid the bills. We've and they were there. They were custodians for a long time as well.
Yeah.
A long period of time. Not sure exactly how long was it, 14, 15 years, something like that. And that's a long time in football ownership. So I know there were some dark days and some difficult days, but they paid the bills. And people don't know a lot about Joy. She was a very private lady. But all I would say is she was totally 100% committed to the football club.
She used to attend a lot of games, didn't she?
She didn't come to that many, but she used to watch them all streamed. But a knowledge of and depth of knowledge about football and football business and business in general was phenomenal. And I think initially when they came in, I think possibly badly advised, but they recovered a position that was obviously being relegated from the Championship. Got the club back to where it was, and with obviously at the time a 10-year licence at the arena, which obviously something that myself and Stephen Vaughan agreed. But I think I can't change people's minds or opinions on Sisu, but sometimes it's better the devil you know than the devil you don't know. And I think she had her intentions for the football club were certainly right.
Why do you think those good intentions didn't necessarily come across to the supporters? Where do you think that breakdown happened?
Well, I think it probably started with what they call the rent strike, when they left to go to Northampton.
Yeah.
And what supporters won't be aware of, that the rent that they were paying at the time when they went on rent strike was phenomenal. It was unsustainable. For a League One club, it was absolutely unsustainable. So she moved away to prove a point, and prove a point she did, because when we came back at a very reasonable rent. And for most of my 7-year period at the time, that rent was sensible and affordable because of the rent strike. And I think I wasn't at the club when they went on the rent strike, but people that were at the club at the time they went on strike, all agreed internally it was the right thing to do. And now supporters won't see that, but the cost of playing football at the arena under the old rent was just simply not affordable.
And the club couldn't have sustained that.
No.
So if they'd have stayed and carried on trying,
well, they could, but there's only one person that was going to pay for it, and that was Sisu.
Yeah,
and she chose to take that stance.
Yeah. In terms of the way that the supporters feel about Sisu, and there is a lot of negativity towards Sisu. So do you think the downward trajectory to League Two, combined with what's perceived as a lack of investment in players, had an impact on how fans perceived Sisu?
Yeah, possibly. I think the downward trend, it's difficult to stop. It's a momentum, isn't it? But I think it was unfortunate because the previous season to the relegation, if you remember, sort of going into Christmas with the loan players Adam Armstrong and Brian Kent, etc. I think going into the Christmas period, I think the club was close to the top of League One. And then obviously it tailed off the second half of that season, and we had a bad season in terms of recruitment, which ultimately led to the relegation. Was it lack of investment? I don't know. They certainly invested in the club, but not necessarily players, I suppose. It depends how you look and perceive what a budget is. Yeah. But I think when we turned it around, we sort of created our own investment, if you like. But and on the back of the success of Mark, the group of people around us had, they let us. They were a bit more relaxed with the purse strings, if you like. But when you look at over the period of time that they're in ownership, what they'd actually put in cash in terms of hard cash into the club, it's an awful lot of money. Yeah. However it's dressed up or added up, they put cash in, but not maybe the sort of cash that supporters thought they wanted to succeed.
Do you think potentially the way that supporters perceive them is to do with their lack of communication with the supporters prior to your arrival? Obviously, you came and, as League Two was happening, and as we've already touched on, you became the face. You became the forward-facing face. You've always had a policy where you were very open and honest with supporters. You started that fan engagement. Do you think if they'd have potentially done that a few years before, that we might not have reached the point where...
Yeah, I think possibly so. I think that, as I said, Joy is a very private person, and it wasn't, for her, it wasn't about Sisu, it was about the football club. It was almost the opposite, but I think she did have, this, or Sisu did have this impression that they were sort of faceless and didn't say anything. And I think that there was a period in time when we were, trying to sign that licence with Stuart Kane and co. that I touched on when I thought I was going to open the champagne, that we, myself, Mark Hornby and my team, encouraged Joy and Sisu to come out fighting. There'd been a lot of negativity about Sisu, a lot of propaganda from around the city about Sisu, not from supporters, but from third parties who just read between the lines. Yeah, because there's a couple of them that are key to this story, and I can remember talking to Laura and Joy about this, and I said, you got to fight back. You've got to put the truth on the table, and they did start to fight back in the sort of April, May of that year, and I think. I've talked about people, reasonable people and unreasonable people. I think the reasonable people out there, when she did start to fight back and put the truth on the table, I think the reasonable people, took the view that listened and saw that there was two sides to this story. Yeah. So, but I think she. There was
only one being portrayed in the media. There wasn't the local media, especially.
But I think there'd been a propaganda war. You can't get away from that fact. Yeah. There was a propaganda war against Sisu, and the people that fought that war did quite a good job. Yeah.
Came out on top. Well,
initially,
looking like they were on top.
But why those people would take that stance in the first place, I don't know, because they should have been protecting the city.
Protecting the club that is from the city.
Correct.
If we talk a bit about the COVID years of football, it was a strange time for the world, but it was especially strange when sport started in general, and it started behind closed doors. If we look back at the date that COVID was announced and lockdown came into place, what happened at that moment in terms of a football club?
I can remember vividly. I'll say that because I think I want to say it was the 13th of March. I think it was Friday the 13th.
13th of March was in my head.
Friday the 13th of March, I was in Spain, and Spain had got COVID before us, so I'd had a week in Spain. It wasn't a week; it was between the games, so we'd played on the Saturday. Must have flown on the Sunday, and I was coming back on the Friday for the home game against Shrewsbury Town on the Saturday, which didn't take place. So I spoke to my son on the Thursday night. He said, "Dad, you need to get home. Spain's terrible." I said, "What do you mean Spain's terrible?" Because we were just in a cocoon in Spain. He said, "Oh, there's they've got multiple, hundreds of thousands of cases of it."
Yeah.
So, oh dear, I didn't. Whilst I knew it was happening, I didn't, and I knew I'd been talking to people at the club during the week when I was in Spain, and I was aware that the league were talking about possibly postponing the game on Saturday.
Yeah.
The game, not games.
No,
one game
one
on
game.
Saturday against against Shrewsbury. So I get to the airport, Alicante Airport, and I get a phone call that the game's been called off against Shrewsbury.
Okay.
And I get on the plane and we get home, and I hear that as we took off, we were probably the last flight out of Alicante, and
Wow.
Spain closed for 6 weeks. So that
Just
was
made it home.
just about got home,
Yeah.
which was the start.
Although staying in Spain might not have been so bad.
Yeah, I wonder what it was.
Hindsight now.
Yeah, I could have done worse things, but it was an interesting period of time off the field. Obviously, the world was in crisis. People were sadly losing their lives, losing their loved ones. So it was a difficult period. But we had to adapt, and our season was postponed, abandoned, shall we say. The Championship and the Premier League came back and played on into late summer.
Yeah.
And then the following season started late because of that, but it was decided it was going to be played behind closed doors, and it was strange, it was odd. Obviously, we had the streaming, so everybody could watch the game on streaming if they subscribed to it, which a lot of people did, and that funded a lot of brought good income to clubs at a time when they hadn't got any income.
I was going to say, 'cause that must have been really difficult because you rely on income coming from people going to the games, all of that money comes into the... How was that?
Well, we cope with it better than most, in fairness, and I touched on earlier that, or at one point during the interview, that not having to have staff to run the arena is a benefit to a football club. And we had that benefit then, so our costs were probably as minimal as anybody's in the EFL at the time. So it probably made things slightly easier for us. We coped really well.
That's good.
During COVID financially. We just sold Sam McCallum to Norwich as well in the January prior to that, which really, really helped us. So we got a good transfer fee for Sam McCallum, and that really, we didn't know at the time, but that really, sort of helped finance us during the downtime, if you like.
Did you receive government support as a football business? Was there any aid?
We got furlough, and we took furlough. We used it properly as well. We didn't abuse it.
Yeah.
So we furloughed people when we had to, but what we did, which I'm very proud of, which not everybody did, was we paid everybody £100 in the pound. We subsidised the difference between furlough. If we furlough people, everybody was paid 100%, players, all staff, and a lot of clubs weren't able to do that. A lot of businesses didn't do that. So
I know firsthand a rugby club that the staff had to go down to 80% whilst it was like that. They couldn't top it up.
So we did
really
that, and I'm proud of that. But I suppose it was a little bit easier for us for the reasons I just said. But it was just a strange time, and then when the game recommenced behind closed doors, it was odd. And I look back and I think I was really privileged to be able to watch football live then, because at a time when the country was locked down, I think I'd have gone stir crazy if I hadn't been able to go out and watch my football on the weekend.
Absolutely.
So it was just hard. Going to away games, you drive to an away game, and you could turn up about 2:30 because there's no cars or traffic. And getting out, you leave the ground about 5:10, and you're just on the way home. You'll have to sit in traffic for an hour. So it was just surreal. Yeah,
very strange. And whilst everything was locked down and people weren't allowed to travel to their place of business, and you've got players that potentially are living in areas that the rest of their family isn't. So if I look at our business, We used to do an online quiz every week just to keep the team bonding and
Yeah.
keep everyone happy. Did you do anything like that
All
with the
that,
team?
yeah,
Did you all get involved?
Yeah, we all did all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had weekly online sort of meetings just to chat, not
Brilliant.
business meeting,
No.
but all the staff were at home. We just get together. We'd have a
Aw.
Zoom. I think it was a Wednesday morning, 9 o'clock or whatever
Yeah.
it was. We'd have an hour and a half just chatting about nothing really.
Brilliant.
Just to make sure that people were okay.
Yeah. Because it was tough. It was tough for a lot of
It
people.
was, yeah.
The isolation and the loneliness. It was very difficult.
No, it was just, I think everybody suffered in their own way.
Yeah.
I, again, was fortunate enough because I came back into writing immediately that the government said you could.
Yeah.
And I worked on a normal basis from writing. And sometimes there's only me in there, me and maybe Mike Reed, or if we weren't training, Mark Robbins wouldn't even come in. So,
And in terms of the players, you say about them coming back to training. What were their fitness levels like when they came back after that? I assume they've kept themselves fit during that time. However, did it take a while for them to get back into playing?
well, obviously we didn't play again that season, the League One season.
Yeah.
It was abandoned. So I think it would have been very difficult for them to come back.
If they'd have gone straight back into
so in that respect, I'm probably glad that we didn't. The season wasn't recommenced. Obviously, the Championship clubs and the Premier League clubs had to do that. So we started again from fresh.
They almost had more training time, didn't they?
Yeah, but it was strange. It was just a strange. It wasn't natural. It wasn't right. It wasn't a normal pre-season.
And what was it like the first game where fans were allowed to come back to football?
Well, again, I think that was the Forest game. Oh, it might have been the Wolves game. I don't know. The Wolves game in training, but I think it was probably the Forest game when we came back to the arena. So again, it was just a carnival atmosphere.
Yeah.
And
people were happy to be out, weren't they?
Yeah, they were going stir crazy. Yeah. So, and I think, the atmosphere we've built inside the arena now is just phenomenal. And I thought the atmosphere against Oxford United on Friday night was as good as it's ever been. It was incredible. But
we'll live and die in these towns. Literally goosebumps.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I need to learn the words, the whole, the verse, not just the chorus.
You need to have it on repeat in your car on the way home.
Definitely. But we've built that since we came back. From the day we came back against Forest, the atmosphere was brilliant, and it's just got better and better and better.
Yeah.
And then, talk about the crowds again, what we're getting through the turnstile. That's all part of what's happened in that sort of 3-year window.
Yeah.
Come back to the arena. Everybody's just bought into it. It's been brilliant.
So good.
Yeah. So,
Can't wait for the next game.
Got away from COVID there, haven't we? So.
Yeah. What did you make of this season's pre-season friendlies in terms of us having some international?
Yeah, good. It's something that we tried to do previously, but not quite happened. I tried to do international games before. We'd only ever been able to get one game at the arena during my time. One pre-season friendly, that was against Wolves when we. I think it was the season we came back.
I remember.
It was, just before the Forest game. And that's down to availability of the stadium in terms of concerts, in terms of, obviously pitch renovations and whatever's been going on. But fortunately this year that we had 2, which was brilliant.
There was no concerts, was there, this season?
Concerts, yeah. Werder Bremen was excellent. It was good. It was a strong pre-season programme.
It was, wasn't it?
Strongest we probably had, to be fair. Yeah, so that's got to be good for preparations.
Very much.
Pre-season's the most important time in terms of preparing, getting ready fitness-wise, and preparing your team for what's coming. So it was a good varied set of games, with Everton thrown in as well.
And I think the Sky Blues fans really enjoyed going to Germany as well, having seeing the Sky Blues in Europe.
I got to say I was disappointed that I would have gone myself, but as I said, I'm a big cricket man, and I was already committed to going to the Test match at Edgbaston that day when the game was announced. Otherwise, I'd have gone to Germany. I'd have enjoyed that weekend. Definitely.
It was very good. Yeah. Bratwurst and lots of songs. It was brilliant. Now, this is going to be a really difficult question. If you had to pick one absolute favourite memory from your time at Coventry City, and there will be loads, what stands out to you? If you need a happy memory to come in your head as a last thought, what would that be?
There's too many to mention. I've already mentioned 3 of them on here. So the Notts County away was just phenomenal. 2 wins at Wembley. You can't ever forget them, and that's a special place to win.
Very
not
special.
Not so good when it comes to losing. So my career, I'd won 3 times at Wembley. I won with Newport County and then twice with Coventry City. So I got 3 out of 3 wins at Wembley until the playoff defeat. And it's not so pleasant when you lose there, but it's a great place to win. So the 2 Wembley wins. I've talked about the open top bus parade. That was pretty special.
There's so many, isn't there?
Yeah, the first day back at the Arena, that Forest game was special. So there's lots and lots. Yeah.
Wembley this year. Did we win 4-3?
Well, in our minds we did, didn't we? I think the rest of the country thought we won 4-3. I've got a lot of friends that are Man United supporters, and also I'm actually on the way out of the stadium. 1 or 2 supporters from United sort of stopped me and spoke to me and said that it felt like a defeat for them.
Yeah.
And that's what a couple of big Man United season ticket holders, pals of mine, said. They've never felt so deflated coming away from a victory.
Social media was the same. There was a lot of Man United fans on social media saying, "We didn't win. That was Coventry's game."
Yeah, I think it was massive for the football club. We've to talk about the journey, and the journey keeps going on, hopefully.
Yeah.
But I think that was a big day in our journey because big day for everybody, big day for the players on the pitch, but massive day for the club. Obviously coming from League 2 to the Championship and knocking on the door of the Championship.
Yeah.
People have been recognising the club. I think that really put us in the focus of the whole of the country. And
I agree.
I think we put ourselves on the stage that day, saying, "Look, we're here now. We're serious about this."
I think we're more known now for losing than we would have been for winning potentially.
But it was the manner in which we did it.
I agree.
Yeah, and so I think that was a massive day for the football club. I think massive day for the manager. I think Mark's stock on the back of that it's always been high, but it's as high as it's ever been. So it was a big day, a really important day.
Even if you go back to Wolves and the game at Wolves, and I remember walking into the stadium and there were 2 ladies in front of us, and it was as the team coach arrived at the front, and obviously we didn't have club colours on, and so they didn't realise we were Coventry City, and all the fans were the other side of the bus waiting for the coach, and she said to a friend, she said, "Oh look, it's their cup final today, isn't it? Really?" So that was the thought when we went to Wolves and then obviously, it's not our cup final. So I think we surprised a lot of people.
Yeah, I actually stood in the away section for the Wolves game. The only time I've done that, and what a day it was! I don't mind admitting I shed a tear at the end of the game. It was so emotional.
It's incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah, and the way that we did it, obviously, because we dominated the game for long periods of time, and then for them to score twice in quick succession, when they hadn't looked like it, and you think, it was late in the game. The second goal was about 83rd minute.
It was, yeah.
I thought, it's a sickening. We're going to lose. We had a really good game. We've done really well.
Yeah.
Dominated for long periods of time. Made them. We looked like the Premier League team for about an hour of that game.
Yeah.
So to win it in the manner in which we won it with 2 goals in injury time,
incredible.
Was just phenomenal. It was.
I think when the first of the 2 late goals went in, we were all it was great. We were all expecting extra time, not to win it in normal time.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was. So
we talk about good moments. That's another one.
It actually was. Yeah, it was. Well, it led to obviously the Man United at Wembley, didn't it? So, the cup run was really important last season. I think, as I say, if we weren't already on the map, and I think we were already on the map, it's very firmly put us on the map in the general football public's mind. What we're about as a football club.
In terms of, we talk about the cup run last season, and. A lot of people say, did the cup run affect our final positioning in the league? Was it too much for us? Have we got a deep enough squad to be able to manage all of this at the same time? What would you say the plan is for this year going forwards? Will Doug's plan to do the same again, to just do everything, or do we need more depth to be able to manage?
I think you have to take a cup run when it comes. Supporters love a cup run, by the way.
Yeah.
Doug would have wanted. If you'd have asked Doug, I'm sure he'd have preferred the playoffs.
Yeah.
Over an FA Cup semi-final. Can you have both? Difficult. Not many Championship clubs get to the semi-final of the FA Cup in the first place. Did it get in the way? Possibly. But I think it probably papered over, masked the cracks that we weren't quite good enough to make the playoffs. We'll never know. But it was a phenomenal season, whatever. Yeah. And I think if you speak to supporters, supporters always love a cup run, and particularly the FA Cup. I've got a love affair with the FA Cup. I've been watching the FA Cup for 50 odd years, and I've been knocked out in the extra preliminary round. I've been all the way through now to the semi-finals. It's just a fantastic competition.
It's brilliant. It's so unique in the way that everyone can play anyone, and it's amazing the atmosphere that it creates.
Yeah.
It's brilliant.
So it is. So I think supporters would have to accept that we had a fantastic run, a great day at Wembley, which was so nearly another day at Wembley.
Since you've left the club and you've spent your time relaxing and using the boat, are you enjoying it, or are you starting to get the itch to do something a little bit more?
It's funny you should say that, because I spoke to a very good friend of mine in football only this morning and said, I'm starting to get a little bit of an itch, and the exact words. Look, it takes something really special to get me back in. You can probably tell by the way I'm talking about it. I've absolutely loved every minute of every second of my time at Coventry, but not just my passion, but the place and the club. It's got a place in my heart. So it takes something really special, but in the meantime, and if something else does come along, I'll still be a Sky Blues fan, because that's with me now forever, I think.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because obviously you have worked for other football clubs, and you don't live particularly local to Coventry, but I believe you still attend the games now?
Yeah, I come to all the home games, and quite a few of the away games.
And that you don't need to, because you aren't with the club anymore, so you do love the club.
I do love the club. I've made so many good friends. I love the supporters as well. The reception I get from supporters every time I come to a game is just so warming. I walk through the car park and people will speak to me, and I will speak, spend time to speak with them.
Brilliant.
But I get such a great reception from everybody. It just feels like home. It's my club.
Good. It's nice.
Yeah.
And does your dad still come to the games?
He still comes, yeah. He came to the game against Stocksford United, yeah.
So he is a Coventry City supporter as well?
By default, yeah.
Brilliant. And it's nice that, because you get to spend time together, don't you? When you're travelling in the car as well.
Absolutely. Certainly during my time at Cov, he didn't come to many of the home games because, he's obviously in his 90s now. And I got to the home games very early, sort of. Yeah. I was at the stadium from 10 o'clock, so it would have been a long time for him to hang around. But certainly for most of the away games throughout the 7 years, he's been to most of the away games with me.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Nice to spend time,
absolutely.
It's really good.
Yeah.
Very good.
And we always do the express crossword on Saturday morning on the way to the game.
That's the tradition.
Yeah.
What's coming up this season?
Lots of goals at both ends of the pitch. Hopefully a place in the playoffs at the end of it.
Expecting playoffs rather than automatics?
I'm not expecting automatics at all. No, I think there's too many clubs ahead of us.
Burnley have played incredibly the start of the season.
The relegated clubs are always going to be favourites to go back up. And you've got to throw Leeds into that mix as well. So, no, I've never been... I think it's unrealistic to expect automatics.
Okay.
But I caveat that with the fact that, I said earlier that we need to improve the central defensive area of the team. That's why I say there'll be lots of goals at both ends. I think if we can bring a central defender, or possibly two in of quality, then
plug the gap.
Then we can make playoffs. But I think without, then we'll be around it, but might just miss out.
I think there's a lot of expectation this season, especially from supporters. Obviously, we've done playoffs. We all recognise that we beat Manchester United. We have the potential to, and obviously there has been this 5-year plan for the Premier League with the 5-year season ticket.
Yeah.
It's that's out there. Everyone's expecting that. We've had record sales of the home shirt. We've had record season ticket sales. The hype is there. What happens if we don't do it this season?
It is a 5-year plan.
Yeah.
And we're only 1 year down on that 5-year plan. This is year 2. So for me, this will be a message to everybody, the supporters out there, and certainly the owner. We have to be patient. We've got no divine right to make it this year. And there are probably 10 other clubs in a similar position to us who all think that they can make it and all want to make it. So there's no divine right to. We have to be patient.
Yeah.
Simple as, and that's been my motto all the way through. It will take care of itself. We build slowly and purposefully, and we've built the momentum. It takes care of itself, but don't be impatient.
Keep the faith.
Keep the faith. Yeah, PUSB.
Thank you so much, Dave, for joining us today. I'm sure everyone listening on Sky Blue Fans TV has absolutely loved hearing your behind the scenes take on how everything has taken place over the last few years whilst you were in charge at Coventry City. Thank you for everything that you've done, and enjoy your retirement. Enjoy your time on your boat.
Yeah, I'd just like to say, obviously, I've enjoyed every minute of this conversation. I enjoyed every minute of the 7-year journey at the club, through difficult times and fun times and
the roller coaster,
winning times as well. So it's been great fun, and long may it continue.
And I'm sure lots of us will see you home and away games this season because you are still there. And I'm looking forward to seeing where the itch takes you as well. So
well, you'll certainly see me at the games. Of that there is no doubt.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Brilliant.
Well done.
Brilliant.